So Tales from Shining and Sinking India is basically a book that details the workings of broadcast media. Now, we've had many books as far as print is concerned, how print journalism works, but there was a space, I think, that was there in broadcast media, because I used to get a lot of questions when I used to come back from a shoot, from a long story, from a big story. How did that happen? How did you guys manage to get that shot? So I thought there is a huge space here. There is a lot of interest that people have into how journalism works. And I think one of the few things that we still do very well, despite all acquisitions against broadcast journalists, is that we report the big story fair and square as it happens live. The book, Tales from Shining and Sinking India, defines some of these stories. How did we report on 26/11? How do we report from a flood situation in Bihar where you can't even take a broadcast van inside? How do you report on a Chandrayaan launch? How do you report on the various festivals of India? How do you report from Dantewada, where even getting a camera battery charged is much of an issue? So all these experiences collated together, the stories that make us, the stories that break us, into one book. Now, Tales from Shining and Sinking India starts, for example, with travels in Maoistan. The travels actually happened 1 week before the massacre of 76 CRPF personnel. So we were there just days before that worst attack of the Maoists actually took place. So what the book basically attempts to do is to trace some of the problems that we have. So 26/11 is dealt as a 3-day chunk of how it started, how we swung into action, how we reported it, and how the story ended. So it tells you the tale also of 26/11. What it does, it takes the journalistic perspective, and not a bystander's or not a critique's perspective, from a journalistic, a fly on the wall who was there when that action was unfolding and reporting it as it was unfolding. That is what the book is basically doing on a chapter by chapter basis. For example, Mamata Banerjee, the last 1 year of the left front government in West Bengal, how it systematically started collapsing after Shingur, how Mamata kept the pressure, and how she came into power. So Tales from Shining and Sinking India really has stories about almost close to a decade, 8 years that I have spent in hardcore reporting from the field. So it goes back all the way when Hu Jintao came in and there were Tibetan protesters taking into innovative forms of protest really, and some of them even house arrested in Dharamshala. We went to Dharamshala and reported on how they were protesting even there without anybody actually looking at them. We were the only national channel that was there reporting on their activity. So it goes back till that point of time and comes, of course, to West Bengal, to Anna Hazare, the rise, the magnificent rise of Anna Hazare, and then that dramatic fall that he's had. It entails all of that. In terms of research, it was a little easy for me to write this book, is because most of the material that there is in this book is first-hand account. So thankfully, I didn't have to go and physically verify each and everything that I had to state, because I witnessed these accounts. There are places, however, where backgrounders have been done. For example, in Poriborton, the fall of the left in West Bengal, where I have detailed the reasons as to why the left was in power for so long, what resulted in the systematic dismantling of the left, where media, technology, news channels really had a whole lot of role to play, because Shingurs have happened in West Bengal earlier also. It's just that this time around, there was the media that was present, there was SMS, there was MMS technology, mobile phones that was present, that completely exposed the left. So research has gone into those aspects. Making a film and even taking it to news television is a little bit of a problem these days, because what the consumption pattern seems to be in terms of video consumption, making a film would entail you going all the way back and shooting everything from ground zero. What you do in television is you report on the important things. You miss out on the backstory. This book is basically the backstory behind the breaking story. What goes behind getting you that 5-minute news package. You possibly can't shoot it. And if I was going to shoot a movie out of it, then I would have had to travel to at least 15 different locations over a span of a year or two minimum to get all that kind of footage, to recreate the excitement, the buzz, or have another helicopter crash for that matter in Nalla Malla forest. A lot of these things can't be replicated. A lot of things obviously not financially viable, not time constraints. So I thought that these are stories that need to be told, and what's the best way of telling these stories is actually tell it through a book. There is a misconception that journalists just sit in their comfortable AC studios and just have debates. That is, of course, one side of the story. But the other side of the story is that you have these news channels, because tell me if there is ever an episode which is of national import, of importance, and has been missed out on visually. Every channel, every reporter is primed to one task: to get the pictures. I think still in television news, you have to get the pictures, and that is what we are primed for. And if those pictures lie in Dantewada, if those pictures lie in Sri Harikota at 4 o'clock in the morning, or if they lie in West Bengal interiors of Lalgarh, you have to go and get those pictures. This book is a testament to that fact, that news journalism is still doing that kind of work, getting you the pictures that really matter. That's one of the biggest questions, and news journalism has come under a lot of fire over that one singular question: where do you draw the line? Is there a full stop point? Do you continue shooting any and everything? So in a riot situation, do you try to go out, reach out and help someone, or do you actually shoot? Now, the argument from the television perspective is you do a whole lot more better if you shoot a riot situation and publicize it, televise it. And of course, you can then identify the faces who were in the tape. A lot of people have got punished in that way. However, the other side of the argument is, where do you draw the line in terms of creating news? That is the other allegation that keeps coming against us. For example, the Guwahati molestation case, where a news journalist is now, of course, known to have instigated a mob so that he could get a good story of a woman being assaulted. That obviously is a line that shouldn't have been crossed, the editor obviously having been fired there. But yes, it's a constant debate. Where do you go? To what point? How much close do you go to a dead body? How much blood do you show? These are the constant debates that we keep on having. But having said that, the key role still remains is to get that big story out, to get those big pictures out, because people believe in those pictures. People believe in a breaking news situation. I still think that we always go to a news channel, not Facebook, not Twitter. We go to a news channel first. We get a primary source of information. We want to see those pictures. Time and again, that has been proved so. The introduction of the book is very different from actually the contents of the book, and I've been pointed it out. I mean, Gurcharan Das, when he launched the book, he pointed out that your introduction is completely misleading to what the book entails. The book entails 12 stories. Anna Hazare, how we covered him, Chandrayaan launch, Maoist issues, West Bengal politics. The introduction, however, caters to something which has deeply disturbed me, is that the allegations that keep coming against the media. Is it true that the media itself is bringing it upon itself, this crassness, this sensationalism, or there is somebody else who's to blame? The consumption patterns in India, that people honestly want to watch this sensationalism. We are a nation of big boss watchers. Unfortunately, it seems that the TRP ratings of those channels that do sensationalism is much more than any channel or program that tries to be reasonable, that tries to be balanced, that tries to be in-depth. If there is a problem of consumption, channels will have to match that in terms of delivering the content, because remember, every channel has to survive financially, and no one is going to give you money or unless until you have those TRP ratings. You're not given money by advertisers based on your perception. That some advertiser says, I like the kind of programs that you do, here's your check. Doesn't work that way. You have to get those TRPs. The TRPs seem to suggest that it is sleaze, it is sensationalism, it is nationalist jingoism that sells. So in my introduction, which is called, by the way, the masturbating media, because Manishankar Iyer pointed out to me that the media masturbates with joy when there is ruckus in the parliament and doesn't focus on the parliament when the tribal bill or serious issues are being debated. My humble submission is, we would love to show debates in parliament. We would love to do documentaries if there is adequate consumption. It seems that right now you have to cater to the lowest common denominator, because that is where your advertising revenues is coming from, and you have to be loud, you have to be shrill. Unless and until a discerning audience develops good enough to sustain the channel, you will see a whole lot more of this crassness on TV. The problem, however, of television, and we've dealt this question as to why not, a long format movie or something else, is because long format narrative is coming to an end in Indian news. I mean, that is a tragic fact. Many of the stories in Tales from Shining and Sinking India wouldn't have been possible in today's television. It's because television channels have stopped really catering to a long format story. They don't want to go to the depth. They just want to take what happened today, who spoke, one bite, was there a press conference, and that's it. You roll a story in that. What about the people's angle? What about the fact that you go into a story and live that story? What about the experience of a journalist that flows into a story? That, unfortunately, is coming to a little bit of a crisis point. And therefore, narratives of India perhaps might not be narrated by news channels in the future. It might be narrated by independent journalists, independent videographers, independent authors who will give you a much better perspective and story of India than perhaps even a news channel. Recently, iTunes was launched in India, thereby allowing an independent movie maker to bypass the whole distribution system and come to the Apple platform and distribute his movie independently, and I can download it onto my iPad and pay, 500 rupees and watch a movie. In the same way, there has to be some sort of content delivery mechanism, some new mechanism that needs to emerge. Is social media being able to do it? Not really, because there's too much of noise that is being generated. Everybody has an opinion. That doesn't go down well. So you have a news channel, you have internet, there is too much noise in it. You have these mainstream media going online, that is happening. So all the major channels have their own websites, consumption is happening from there. Or you could have some sort of a direct delivery mechanism where independent journalists are actually good enough, trusted enough, that people will subscribe to their content. The problem arises is, will they only subscribe or will they pay? That is the crux of the problem. I asked Tarun Tejpal this question once. You criticize mainstream media. Why is it your magazine is not the #1 magazine? Why is it Indian Express is not the #1 magazine? Why is it Open doesn't sell as much as any other mainstream magazine? The problem still is with people not wanting to pay for quality news. But if people, and a certain amount of people, a certain number of people want to pay for good amount of news, I'm sure there will be some sort of content delivery mechanism that will develop, and good stories will flow to the people who want it. Honestly, there are people who want it, and that's why there's such a lot of criticism of media, because they are not getting those good stories. But that has to be a significant number, and the significant number has to pay. The consumption pattern has to be looked into. There are people who are desperately trying niche channels. There are people who want niche channels to survive, but there has to be consumption. I might point out here that even a channel like National Geographic or Discovery has gone and softened its programming and introduced reality-based shows. Why? Is because they also want TRPs. The consumption pattern has to change. The absorption has to change in terms of revenue. We are just coming into the digital age. Are people willing to pay for standalone news channels? I'll give you a small example. You're willing to pay for your ESPN Star Sports when your cricket match comes in. You're willing to pay for your HBO or Warner Brothers as a standalone channel. Would you be willing to pay for a standalone niche channel? When that answer becomes yes for a significant amount of people, we actually follow America and Europe and have more channels. But right now, it's only TRPs that allow advertisers to fund you. It's all advertising based. Unless and until that changes and it becomes subscription based, we will continue to face this problem.